There are two reasons for this. Firstly, parents are not financing their children. And number two, the school fees and the college fees are far too high. Today, the college fee for schools in the United States is in the $25,000 per year range, and university fees are in the $50,000 per year range. Obviously, nobody can support that. I mean, in Europe today, in the best universities, you can go through with just $1,000 a year. That is the upper limit of fees. There are frequently good universities at half that amount, that is to say $500 a year. So parents can afford it, and the governments manage to subsidize education because they understand the importance of education in the long-term framework of the economic and social life of a country. But in the United States, we do not have government intervention because almost all schools and universities are private, and secondly, parents can't afford it. And so we have a structural problem here, and I do not know what is the solution to this. What I do know is that if university education is $50,000 a year and rising at the rate of 5% every year, you are going to have students having to work, and if they are working, they are not going to be able to study as much as when they were full-time students like Mr. Karunan and I myself was or were in different universities in the world. So we have a structural problem to which I do not have a solution. Over to Montclair for two questions from Montclair.
So the question is, okay, first of all, my name is Axel, and our question is from Montclair. In many countries, the voting age is restricted, and holding office also has age restrictions. So would the way to get adolescent people more involved is to lower those age requirements?
Second question.
Hi, my name is Claire Keating, and our second question is, what do you think the effort should be against global sex trafficking involving young women?
Okay, first question. On the one side, you say that more youth should be brought into the national life. But then you have restrictions, which are legal restrictions. You don't allow them to vote, you don't allow them to join before age 18 or age 20 or whatever. In Pakistan, it is age 21 for entering. And so, quite obviously, the governments are geared against youth. And the second question stands on its own merit, sex trafficking. Floor is yours.
Yeah. I think that's a major impediment for bringing in much more young people into the political mainstream is the voting age. This is a highly politicized issue in most countries around the world. I don't think we have an answer to that in the UN system. We are leaving it very much to governments to determine based on their own considerations as to what should be the limit and at what point they should actually lower the limit. But there is a resistance coming both from government itself as well as, like I said earlier, from those who control government today. There is a resistance coming from the older members of parliament. There's resistance coming from the type of leadership that has been entrenched within political parties to resist young people to actively engage and to formally engage in politics, and therefore to be sitting in parliament and to join the mainstream. So that is a major impediment for us, and I think definitely we would gain by lowering the age for voting, bringing in much more young people to be able to exercise their opinions.
Brazil has brought it down to 16.
Yes, exactly. So that's a good example. And I think other countries need to learn from that. But like I said, it's highly politicized. And I think there is a strong resistance from governments to lower the age. But there are some good examples like Brazil. Global sexual trafficking. I think there are some excellent initiatives. The most important network that we work with is ECPAT, End Child Prostitution and Trafficking, which is based in Bangkok, a global network of NGO that has shown through its consistent, systematic work in not just rescuing girls, young girls from brothels and from trafficking, but also strongly advocating and building the capacity of police, the judiciary and other government agencies to try to prevent trafficking from taking place. They worked across borders, they worked in the most difficult situations, but have been able to have tremendous amount of success. That's the type of global initiative that you need. This NGO, which is a partner of UNICEF, has shown that a global campaign is needed to be able to address trafficking because of the complexity of that issue, as well as the fact that no one country controls that within its borders. It's a trans-border type of issue that needs to be addressed by the UN as well.
But you agree that sex trafficking is not because of any fascination with sex, which is a good idea, but because of absence of job creation.
Yes.
It is that youth do not have jobs. And that is why they are open to exploitation for sex trafficking.
Yes.
And so the essence, once again, becomes participation of youth in jobs.
Yes, it is an employment issue. It is an issue of poverty, of how the inability of families to be able to earn sufficient income to support the members within the family, so that prostitution, trafficking and so on becomes the only option available to those poor families in the rural areas.
Over to Fairleigh Dickinson at Vancouver for two questions from that end, and I thank you for having to get up so early in the cold climate of Canada.
Thank you, Ambassador Kamal, Mr. Karunan. I'm from Brazil. My name is Ronaldo. My question is, I understand that child labor is a big issue in various parts of the world today. And I believe that youth are many times interested in helping to improve the world, but they're sometimes busy being exploited. So can the UNICEF do anything about it?
Second question.
Good morning, sir. My question is, I personally think that all youth are very much affected by creative media like ads and online videos and things that inspire them are more on the creative side than on the educational side. So are there any measures that you're taking to inspire us to come forward to make the changes that we might want to make through creative media, so that we also know, like, okay, UN is there and it's doing something for us and we can do something by talking to them just to publicize it?
I'll take the first question myself and leave the second question to you. Child labor is really not a problem. Poverty is a problem. The problem is that families are not getting enough money to feed themselves. And so everybody has to go out and work. If they don't work, you don't eat. And so the problem is not child labor. The problem is poverty and poverty alleviation. And that is where we are not succeeding. Let nobody tell you otherwise. Poverty is increasing everywhere in the world. If you take China out of the equation, poverty has increased in Asia, it has increased in Africa, it has increased in Latin America, it has increased in Eastern Europe, it has even increased in the United States. And so we are facing a terrible epidemic of poverty in the world. And so, believe it or not, children will have to work at an earlier and earlier age. It's going to affect their schooling, but there is nothing to be done about it. We are living in the age of Charles Dickens, where children have to produce money in order for families to be able to feed themselves. Now, what can be done about it? I don't know, except a greater emphasis on poverty alleviation, and automatically after that, children will stop working and go into schools. But until then, I'm afraid the situation is impossible. On creative ads, the floor is yours.
I think UNICEF has only in recent years realized the importance of new technology and particularly online social networking with young people. It took us many years to come to terms with this tremendous opportunity that new technology provides. And I'll just give you a few examples of how we're trying to address that, particularly working and targeting adolescents and young people. In 1995, we set up the Voices of Youth, which is our interactive site for adolescents and young people around the world. It has a membership of about 1 million youth, the majority of them from the developing countries.